Okay, well, let's move on to another music-related film, although in quite a different regard, and that's Soul. Scott, tell us about Soul.
Yes, Soul is the latest from Disney Pixar, or Pisney, or Dixar. Yeah, maybe not the last one. In which a New York music teacher, Jamie Foxx's Joe Gardner, dreams of achieving his lifelong ambition of being recognised as a jazz star. So shouldn't this film be called Jazz then? Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that. It seems after years of false starts and beseechings from his family to settle down and learn to love teaching, he might be getting his big break, securing a gig with the famed Dorothea Williams Quartet. Then he falls down a manhole and dies. Whoops. Or is left comatose, at least. His soul, it all becomes clear, is transported to a carefully non-denominational afterlife holding pattern, but not being ready to enter the great beyond, Joe jumps off the Travelator of Souls and ends up in the great before, where unborn souls are prepared to plummet to Earth to perpetrate the horrors of humanity upon each other. Due to some confusion or other, Joe ends up assigned as an instructor to Tina Fey's 22, a soul that needs to find her spark in order to fill out her passport to Earth. The thing is, she doesn't seem to want to leave the comfort of the great before, so they work out a deal. Find the spark, complete the passport, trade positions. It doesn't go quite to plan, though, with 22 continuing to be unable to find that spark. However, they're helped by, of all people, Graham Norton's dream warrior hippie sign dude Moonwind and his pan-dimensional soul galleon, heading to Earth, but Joe comes back wrong. Which is to say that he possesses the body of a passing therapy cat, while 22 is slapped into Joe's body. As such, I'm afraid to say that Tina Fey is now cancelled due to performing in digital blackface. Hashtag blackface. The rest of the film chronicles
How
the
long
attempt.
did you spend on that one, Scott? Be honest.
Literally 2 seconds, and that's the respect that it deserves. The rest of the film chronicles the attempt to get the souls back into the respective correct homes while keeping Joe's career on track and avoiding the wrath of Terry, Heaven's accountant, voiced by Rachel House. And hey, they might just realise a few things about the human condition along the way. Contrary to expectations raised by my tone in the proceeding, I quite enjoyed Soul. Look at me, subverting things like Rian Johnson. It has a charming visual style, or styles to be more precise, both the lovingly caricatured New York and the stranger soulscapes of the great before. It's asking more meaningful questions than media primarily for children would. To be fair, a standard Pixar strength, but this certainly executes it much better than Onward, if not so well as Coco, but then what good? If there's a disappointment to be found, and frankly this is a stretch, it's that the vocal performances, or maybe the script, are just good. Either the cast isn't leaning into the material, or the material isn't adapted to the casting, which perhaps leads into a rehash of the cast professional voice actors over Hollywood stars argument again, but this does not feel like Jamie Foxx or Tina Fey playing a character. It feels like them showing up and reading their lines. That's even more prevalent, but less important with the supporting cast. Hello, Richard Ayoade. Glad to see you're doing Richard Ayoade again.
It's that I was going to say. That's exactly who it sounds like. It's got Richard Ayoade is playing Richard Ayoade in a role that it should be entitled Richard Ayoade, not Jerry.
Yes. But based on a high opinion I generally hold of Fox and Fey, I thought they were maybe a touch below par here. Still, not enough to take me out of a film while watching it, and only while writing about it later on, so I recommend that you just don't do that and watch it instead. Also, it seems weird that Trent Reznor did the music for this. It's like finding out that Louis Armstrong invented K-pop. But yes. Yes. To be fair, more of the New Age stuff that was in here rather than the soul stuff, which I think is more John Baptiste or some of the other guys, or Questlove, I think, maybe as well, from some of the casting. But yeah. Nonsense aside, Soul was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. I don't want to say a return to form for Pixar, because normally their quality is quite high. I think Onward was a little bit of a blip, and even then I didn't think it was all that bad. And this is certainly up there with some of their best work. I liked it a lot.
I think you'll remember that I did think Onward was all that bad, so this is a good degree above that, which is good. That said, I still thought Soul was fine. It's kind of middling Pixar, I guess, for me. And I think part of that is actually the Trent Reznor music is awful. It's unlistenable. It's hate it. I hate it so much. All this the kind of electronic rubbish that was in the kind of Great Before and Great Beyond. I hated it. Whereas John Baptiste's jazz compositions were great. I really enjoyed those. I really like John Baptiste. If you're not familiar with John Baptiste, he's the band leader on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Him and his band Remain Human. So his stuff was really good. And I've been quite looking forward to seeing that, actually, because of watching him talk about it with Stephen Colbert a couple of times in the last few months. So part of the problems in music, it's... Yeah, you make a good point, Scott, about the performances. They didn't feel like performances for a lot of the part. It's like they turned up to be themselves.
And to be fair, I don't know when their vocal performances were put in. I mean, would this have been during the pandemic or after it? Were they together? Could they bounce off each other? I don't know. But it felt a little bit... flat's too harsh, but it felt like they were just showing up and reading what they were given to them. There wasn't really much of the way of personality implanted upon those roles. It didn't feel like they made them their own. They just felt like they read what they were given and did that well enough, which is fine, but it doesn't make it special.
Yeah, they're not phoned in, although that's kind of technically exactly what they were. But it didn't. I know most voice acting in animations is actually done alone anyway. Occasionally be able to get people together, but even that's like maybe just not having the director like right with them to be able to kind of just tweak things a bit. That's. It's not so much that the voices are lacking in energy, but it's just, I don't know, there's kind of nothing special about it.
It just, don't repeat it again, but it felt like they were just playing themselves. It's obviously more obvious in the way that Ayawadi or Norton performs their lines, because this isn't their bag. This isn't really what they're. I can kind of get behind it for that. But when Jamie Foxx shows up, he just sounds like Jamie Foxx. It doesn't sound like him. I couldn't really buy it as a character of Joe. It just felt like Jamie Foxx reading the lines that this guy was mapped onto. Same with Tina Fey to a lesser degree, I think, maybe. But it just didn't quite gel.
Again, like when it's competent, it does the job. It's just there's nothing special about it. And Richard Ayoade,
in a way that there's obviously been more iconic voices. I mean, obviously, you go back to Toy Story for this kind of thing, where it absolutely does not feel like you're watching Tom Hanks on screen when you see Woody. Same with the rest of the cast there. But it just didn't quite gel here.
Graham Norton, he's not really an actor. I know he's in a handful of episodes of Valentine. It's not really an actor, so I'll let that pass. He's in there just because he's kind of popular. Like some people in the United States watch Eurovision with his commentary, and his talk show has become reasonably popular.
Yes, I quite like Graham Norton, to be honest. I didn't mind it, but it's just... It's very clearly Graham Norton doing a voice role. It's not. There's no character to it.
My point is, I'm going to cut him a lot of slack. But weirdly, like the one character that, at least because I don't know anything about her, but the one character that had any actual, it was like a character, was Terry, and I hated it. I hated that character so much. I hated her voice. I hated the character. So I was like, maybe they were okay just being themselves, because the one thing that did have a distinct character I did not care for at all. But my bigger problem was, as well as I really did enjoy the music and the Great Before, Great Beyond thing. But I was really not enjoying the film to begin with, and particularly that section in the Great Before, and then, as you said, his Great Pan-Dimensional Soul Galleon. All of that stuff that's happening there, and I was watching it thinking, who the hell's the audience for this? Kids must be bored out of their skulls watching this, and I'm bored out of my skull watching this, and I'm an adult. And I was genuinely thinking, it kind of took some of the concepts of Inside Out and like doubled down on them, and it's so not entertaining. And I wonder where they're going with this. And then suddenly Jamie Foxx is a cat, and like, oh right, okay, I'm on board with this now. I was really worried, because I didn't actually know anything about the plot beyond like the very broadest strokes. I'd kept to that way specifically. And I was watching this, and I was really worried the whole film was going to take place in the kind of realm,
The
of the
metaphysical
soul.
realm, yes.
Yeah, it's not interesting, and it's like this is really dry for an adult with this kind of metaphysical stuff. Like how are kids going to watch this? And then I said again, suddenly Jamie Foxx is a talking cat. Like okay, and it was a very sudden thing, but like when the souls appear, like oh okay, right, this is actually fun now. Okay, and it's not top tier Pixar at all, but it's entertaining, it's funny.
Listen, I'd much rather we have Pixar that's taking risks on stuff like this, even though it didn't quite pan out, stuff like Onward, but it's challenging a bit more than making Cars 4.
Yes, absolutely. That's what they seem to have been doing recently, because they had a lot of criticism for it. They went for the safe stuff, the constant sequels, like 4 Toy Stories now. That's ridiculous. And admittedly, only the 4th one was the one that wasn't like the highest quality, but still, it's like, yeah, really? And especially when you tied up that story so nicely in 3.
Yeah.
So they are trying stuff now, and I appreciate that. And that's good, because they kind of need to fail. Mm-hmm. Because that's creatively, how else do you get better? It's like, no, you need a big flop, and this wasn't it by any means. But I like that they're trying new things, and that's good.
Yeah, and certainly the bullet points of this is no less strange than something like Coco. And Coco is one of the best films I've seen in the last decade. So
yeah, absolutely,
if they keep pushing these, I'm happy enough for them to keep going. This one is just for me, pretty good rather than excellent. But
yeah, I guess for me it's fine. But again, I appreciate they're trying something, and I do appreciate that the main character and his friends and family are black, because that has certainly been lacking. Yeah. Although, I mean, beyond that, it refers to jazz, and there were some black people involved in making it. John Baptiste, who I've mentioned, and I think is one of the scriptwriters black as well. I'm sure they didn't make the mistakes they made in the past, and actually had people of colour involved in the production of it.
Yeah,
But it's like the fact that the black is sort of incidental. It's not really kind of much about the experience of being black about it. But this is Disney, who won't even let women kiss each other if they're a main character. So not even the most chaste kiss. So I'll take this just now. It's a step. So it's good that they are trying something different, and say big step up from Onward, which I really didn't care for at all. It's the first non-car based Pixar film that I really, really disliked. So that's it's good that it exists. I think I do wonder, as you do, Scott, whether the pandemic has caused kind of limitations in how they made it, and that has come across on screen. It's just lacking a certain je ne sais quoi. There's something. It's it just needs a bit more punch. A lot of the performances. And whether being made in a different year, whether the end result would have been better. Very good chance of it, but obviously we can never know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think with the hand they've been dealt, I think they've done as well as they could with the concept and with everything else. I think probably the one thing you said I maybe didn't consider is how would this land with a very young audience, because it's hard to say how much they'd know about the concepts and ideas being put together about souls being made to born and being ready to transition to the great beyond and all that sort of stuff. It's maybe a bit too esoteric on that level, but I might in a vacuum have said the same thing about Inside Out, which seemed to have done pretty well by all considerations. So maybe I'm just not giving them the credit they deserve. But yes,
I don't know. Inside Out had it was the idea of emotions, which children can understand, and
they understand anger and stuff.
And children don't know what hedge fund managers are. That's quite an important point early on.
True.
If it's any metric, my two love Inside Out, but they've shown no interest whatsoever in watching Soul. So,
yes, you must experiment upon them by showing them Soul and then reporting back.
My wife is the only one in the house who's watched Soul, and her summation was, it was all right.
Yeah, that's pretty much James with mine, Craig. That's largely how I felt.
But she didn't think it would be particularly interesting to the kids, so...
Yeah. I know the chances of them getting through the first 15 or 20 minutes are pretty slim, I think. If they get through that, then it's okay, but the first chunk of that film's a slog.
I was in the room while she was watching it, but I was sort of otherwise engaged, but I did catch much of that sort of opening half hour. I did at least see some of it, and I can totally get where she's coming from. So yeah, I didn't see anything there that I thought this will keep my kids' attention. It did seem somewhat on the abstract.
It seems like it should be rated 12A just on the basis of practicality for interest rather than anything thematically involved in it.
Yeah. Lest the parents of young children just waste a lot of money, basically. Yes.
Out of curiosity, Craig, how did your kids respond to the section in Inside Out where they become abstract shapes?
I don't recall rightly. I don't recall at all.
Because the opening of this film, the first few minutes when they're setting up Joe, but after that, the stuff we were talking about, the realm of the mass, the great beyond and the great before, it feels like an extension of that section of Inside Out.
I don't know. I'm trying to think the last time they watched it. I couldn't tell you exactly what they actually. Tell you a lie. Actually, they watched it like last week. Now that I think about it, but I wasn't there in the room for that one. So I don't know. I dare say, like my eldest is at a stage where she might wrestle with some of what it's trying to offer, or she might potentially sort of instinctively understand some of it, if not explicitly. But like, my youngest, there's no hope in hell that he would last more than about 5 minutes from what I saw. So, nobody farts in the first 5 minutes. Nobody steps in poo or anything like that. So, yeah.
A common flaw with most films, to be fair. Most films could be improved by that.
If there's any criticism to be levelled at Citizen Kane, Scott.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Whereas on the other hand, the Carry On films, my kids are big connoisseurs of. Oh, dear.
Matron.